G'day. Thank you for joining us in the segment called Understanding the Word. Today I want to share with you, and I want to begin by telling you a story. It's about a missionary called Otto Quinnoch. He was a missionary in Papua New Guinea. And in the country, when he went there to be a missionary, the cultural value was that stealing was normal. And he discovered that the people were chronic thieves. He would plant pineapples, and before the pineapples were ripe, they would steal them. They would hang up their clothes, and then the next moment they would find that the locals are wearing their clothes. And this really caused an anger in him. Now, in the culture, anger was unacceptable. So they didn't accept him because anger was the cultural sin, not stealing. And so they weren't willing to accept anything he gave. Now, he spoke about this verse, and this verse is important. And this is Luke 14, verse 33. So then, none of you can be my disciple who does not give up all his own possessions. So Otto learned that he had to give up his possessions. He didn't own anything. He gave it to the Lord. And when he gave it to the Lord, that's when the things started working out and God interceded. Things started going wrong for the members of the tribe. And when this started happening, they asked Otto, what did you do? And he said, I gave it to the Lord. I don't own it anymore. And so then they had a problem because if it didn't belong to anyone, they couldn't steal it. But the principle that was taught was that not only that stealing is wrong, but it's about surrendering. And when he surrendered, he no longer felt anger, and he changed, and the tribe was changed, and eventually they were saved. Discipleship means lordship. You know, you cannot be a disciple if you want to fight for your own rights. And that includes fighting for your own property. And Otto had to come to the point where he realized that all his possessions, everything he owned, belonged to the Lord. Often in a culture, we have to change ourselves. And then as we change, we display a redemption. Firstly, how God has redeemed us in the culture that He's placed us. Now, another passage that's really important is Romans 12, verse 1 to 2. And in that passage, Romans 12, verse 1 to 2, I'll read it. Therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. Now, the word there used for transformed is the word metamorphosephe, which we get the English word metamorphosis. And a metamorphosis is a transformation that takes place. See, we are on this exciting journey of transformation. It's a journey in which we discover new things. Now, a butterfly goes through a process of transformation. When an egg lets a caterpillar come out, or gives birth to a caterpillar, that caterpillar crawls around the dirt. And when it's crawling around the dirt, it has a very limited perspective. It thinks all that it sees or knows is what it discovers as it crawls around in the dirt. But we were created for much more than that. We were created to fly, just like a butterfly, to spread our wings and fly. Francis Chan writes, for all its caterpillar life, it crawls around a small patch of dirt and up and down a few plants. Then one day it takes a nap, a long nap, and then what in the world must go through its head when it awakens to discover it can fly? Can you imagine that? One moment it's a caterpillar, it goes to sleep, and the next minute it discovers it's a butterfly. Paul encourages the believers in this way. Therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, or because of the mercies of God, the mercy is shown you to present your bodies as a living sacrifice to God, acceptable. And as we present our bodies, which means make ourselves available for us to be transformed, metamorphosis, to go through a metamorphosis. Now, what is it that is changed? What is changed is our inner being. Our character and our nature is transformed, and we are transformed into the character and nature of Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ was, as you can say, beautiful. He displayed beautiful array of colors. And through his death and resurrection, we have life and we are transformed. But transformation requires that we allow the Holy Spirit to renew us. That's why it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The renewing, the transformation of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is. You see, when we are transformed, only then can we know the will of God. It requires a change of character so that we can know God's will. And not just his will, but his perfect will that he has for us. This process of transformation can also be seen in Ephesians 2, verse 1 to 3. In Ephesians 2, verse 1 to 3, it talks about what we were before we were saved. And that can be compared to when we were a caterpillar or still an egg. And then it talks about the way we followed the world. We were stuck in the dirt. We were stuck in the mud. But God, in his grace, saved us. He transformed us. He gave us a new life. And then in Ephesians 4, verse 14 to 15, we are now to live no longer as infants. It says, then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves, and blown here and there by every wind of teaching, and by the cunning and craftiness of men in their deceitful scheming. You see, if you're not being transformed, you are not able to grow. It's a process of growing, becoming all that God has created you to be. Just as a child has to grow, and it goes through different phases, it becomes a teenager, we have to grow. The point of transformation is when we surrender and give up our rights. And that's what we began with. Otto Koenig gave up his rights. He went to the mission field to discover that he had to give up his possession. He had already thought he'd given up his culture, but he had not surrendered. And when he did and performed that act of surrender on the mission field, God transformed him. And through the transformation that the village could see in Otto, they were transformed. Now, when we are transformed, we display the fruit of the Spirit. And I would like to call the fruit of the Spirit the character of Jesus. And there's 9 fruit: love, joy, peace, gentleness, kindness, patience, perseverance, humility, and self-control. But there's another 9 characteristics that we have about that Jesus asks us to display and that Jesus demonstrated. And that's called the Beatitudes. And there's 8 of those. Poor in spirit, mournful, meek, hunger and thirst for righteousness, merciful, pure in heart, persecuted for righteousness. So there is these 9 qualities and 8 qualities, beatitudes. And as we display those, as those fruit are born by the Holy Spirit in us, we display the character of Jesus. I want to ask you, are you on a journey of transformation? Or have you become stuck? Are you stuck in the mud? And there's the image of a pig and a sheep. You see, when a pig gets stuck in the mud, it rolls around in the mud and enjoys it. It thinks it's natural. But when a sheep gets stuck in the mud, it struggles to get out, and it knows it's not meant to be there. How is your journey with the Lord? Are you allowing the Holy Spirit to transform you?